Hey guys, another video from Rage RC. I had a guy comment on one of the YouTube videos on what I had done to make the steering a lot tighter, take away some of the slop in the steering. Almost all of the issues come down to these brass bushings inside of the steering setup. This is called the steering anchorman setup. This truck is a complete donor truck. This is put together from a whole bunch of different parts, and we're in the process of building it, so I thought what a better time than to go ahead and show you guys on this particular truck the steering setup that we did. Okay, so Josh was the first one to do this on his shredder. This is XXX. And inside of here, what you will end up taking off is this top plate, which is this plastic piece, and this metal piece here. You'll have to take the metal part off first, take the plastic piece off, and that will expose all of the steering mechanism underneath here. And just so you guys are aware, it's really easy to get the front drive shafts out of these trucks. And you want the front drive shaft out to do this, and I'll explain why. Your steering setup, which this is what I would call the drag link, sits underneath of the input cup on the differential. And the best way to get these off on the shredder when the top plate's off is just grab this and flex it down out of the way. And then you're not sitting there fighting it. I've seen a lot of people try to repair their steering setup and whatnot with this drive shaft in the way, and it's just a pain. You're working around it. You can't get this up high enough. You gotta fiddle around with the washers and bushings under there, and it's really time consuming, and it makes it kind of a pain in the ass. So what I do is I just slide the drive shaft out, toss it on the table. So the part numbers that you're gonna need to upgrade your steering is these are the shims that you use inside the differential, BS 903-091, and these bearings are Amazon bearings. They're MR85RS BL, and they're a 10-piece set, so you get 10 of these tiny little bearings. I can't remember right off exactly what the diameter of them is, but I believe they are 5mm inside diameter, 8mm outside diameter, and they're 3 millimeters thick this way. So it's going to be 8 on the outside, 5 on the inside, and 3 millimeters thick. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this one together. Let me make sure that these bushings are all out of here. Okay, I got to take one bushing out of the top so we can have a place to put the new bearing in place. Just take these bushings and they pop right out. They're real easy to get out of there. So on the bottom, what you're going to want to do is what I have found to be the easiest way to do this is I always just slide my bearings right on the shafts, and they usually don't fall off. If you come to a point where they're really hard to get on here because your bushing has worn these out, you can order the whole new Anchorman setup, or you can just take a piece of emery cloth and sand that down, and the bearings will slide on the shafts nice and easily. You don't want to take too much material off, or that's going to make slop in the bearing this way. You don't want to do that. You want just enough to where the bearing slides on, and if it pushes on tight, that's okay as well. Okay, so first thing I do, I strip all the bearings off of the post. I take the post right out of the truck so I can get everything to fit correctly first. Then you're going to take your screws from the bottom, just slide this right over here so it's flat on the table. And you're going to come in from the bottom, and I just push this stuff right out of the way so that the holes are completely exposed. And you're just going to slide your bolt in from the bottom, and these are tapered bolts. You can buy a whole set of these from Amazon. That's what these are. They were relatively inexpensive. I think it was like $8 or $10 for the whole set. And then I just tighten these down by hand. I don't worry about cranking anything down tight yet until I get the entire truck assembled, because the screws will turn against themselves once the top plate's on, and you won't have to sit there and attempt to find a way to hold this post to tighten it down. So as long as you get it tight enough to where there's no space in between the plastic and the post, and they're not wobbling around, they're fine. Then you're going to take one of these little bushings and you're going to slide it down over the shaft. And it's going to help raise that bushing, bearing that we're replacing. It's going to raise it up, and it'll help with these little screws. If they ever come loose, it'll help them from catching on the outside edges of your lower bulkhead. Then you're going to take your bearings and you're going to slide them all the way down on the shaft, just like that. Same with this side here. I'm going to slide them all the way down on the shaft. And then what I like to do I like to just take this whole front end and I just bend it back out of the way. It's all plastic. It's not going to break. Get that side started and get this side started. And that's why I put the bearings on first, so I'm not trying to guide them down on there. Once you get them in place, you just take your bearings and you press your shafts down on top of the bearings. You're going to repeat those steps for the top. Take your bearings, set them in place just like you would the bushings. And once you get them in place, you can see already there's almost no play. I mean, the posts are moving, but there's no play in that shaft anymore. Before, there is so much slop after those start getting worn out that when you go to steer, this whole entire setup jumps back and forth and side to side, and that just absolutely destroys the handling of the truck. So anyways, guys, that's pretty much all you got to do. You're going to go ahead and put your top plate back on, replace all your screws, and put these back on. I will suggest, this truck was already taken apart and I have to replace this upper bulkhead. As you can see, the screws are stripped out from a prior accident. You do have to take these two upper control arm bolts off in order to get this top plate out on a truck, because you cannot get to these two bolts. There's not enough space. They're actually underneath it here. So I do recommend taking these off, sliding the control arms out of the way. It makes it a lot easier to get to those bolts. That's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, don't forget to comment on this particular video. If you need a little more in depth or anything else, don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe and smash the bell. We'll have more videos to come. Thanks.